Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I want to thank you for clicking on this video. I hope you're having a good day. We're not going to waste any more time. We're just going to jump into today's video, which is going to be about my review for The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, Season 1, Episode 1, titled Years. Also, I did want to apologize. I wanted to have this video out on either Monday or Tuesday, but I was waiting for this microphone to come in. Just trying to do what I can to make sure I can bring you guys the best content possible. And I know the audio before, it was just coming off my phone and it wasn't the best. So I just wanted to wait for this to come in before I got the reviews up. But it is here now. So moving forward, each review should be up for the rest of this season, either by Monday or Tuesday at the latest. Alright, to start things off here, I want to talk about the opening title sequence. I really like this. I thought it was crafted really well. I do love the music here. It's the same music that you hear playing when you see Rick and Michonne at the very end of Season 11 of The Walking Dead. I like that little callback there. It's really good music. I like it. I enjoyed it. As far as the visuals for that, I did like it. However, it's not my favorite out of the spinoffs that we've gotten so far between Daryl Dixon and Dead City. I personally like the one from Dead City as my favorite so far, visually at least. And I'd say Daryl Dixon probably a close second there. However, I did enjoy it. It's crafted well. I think it works great with this show. I really like the very ending opening sequence there with Rick right by the title card. I'm not sure if maybe episode 2 it'll be Michonne on the title card, if they're going to change that up, or if it's consistently going to be just Rick there. But we'll see in the future. And one more thing I want to talk about here before we start getting into the actual episode is I want to outline Andrew Lincoln's performance. I mean, he steps right back into the role of Rick Grimes as if he never left. He does an outstanding job all throughout this episode. There are many scenes that I could argue are some of his best performances yet. Personally, one of my favorites before this would have been the Season 6 finale and that Season 7 premiere when they first met Negan. I don't know how this man doesn't have any awards. He should have all the awards. He should have all the Emmys, the SAGs. I mean, this guy should get some kind of award for the work that he's done on this show, and hopefully that will come to fruition at some point. I'd also like to see Andrew Lincoln take a shot at maybe some other things outside the Walking Dead universe, just to sort of maybe be able to see him around a little bit more, see him in other projects. I think that would be very great to see because he's a world-class actor, and I just don't really think he's given the credit that he really deserves yet. So starting things off with this episode, we do quickly learn that Rick has tried to escape 4 times from the CRM already. We don't really get much information on the first 2 times that he tried to leave, but we know that the 3rd time he tried to leave was during the Season 11 finale of The Walking Dead, when we saw him and Michonne 2 different places, and Rick had already basically escaped from the CRM, but he was captured once again. And then we jump right into the 4th time they tries to escape, which is most definitely his most brutal and gruesome attempt yet. You can tell how desperate he really is with this one. Rick decides to try to cut off his own hand, and then tries to cauterize it with a dead walker that's on fire, which is absolutely crazy, you know. And I know in a previous video I said that I didn't think Rick would cut off his own hand there to just be running around the woods with no way to cauterize his wound or anything, and he really just went for it there and sticking it in that dead walker, and that was crazy. But you really get to see how desperate Rick is to try and get home. And it really sucks he didn't make it far. I mean, like maybe 10 feet before he was captured again. Really sucks. But there was something really cool that came out of it. That being with Rick's prosthetic. He's got this cool new Assassin's Creed prosthetic. I think it's freaking awesome. One of my favorite prosthetics I've seen so far. I know a lot of people like to talk about Merle, but also Aaron's little ball with the spikes on it. I think that's amazing. It would be cool to see Rick have something like that. But the Assassin's Creed blade is definitely really cool, and I hope he keeps that for a while. And in that same scene where Rick cuts his hand off, earlier before that, you can hear people talking about how that they volunteered to do this, and doing so will over time get them access to become like a citizen of the CRM, which I thought was pretty cool. Once Rick does end up getting the prosthetic, he is not too long after that recruited by Okafor to join the CRM, the military, and Rick does this, and you can kind of see there's a little montage of him learning more how to fight. through the CRM, as well as they have these cool computers set up simulating how to operate and pilot the helicopters, which I thought was a pretty cool detail that they have that technology and they're still utilizing that for all their military, which is amazing. We then get a scene where Okafor takes Rick and Pearl down to some old destroyed stadium, and he basically sits them down and starts explaining his overall plan for the CRM and how he wants to change things from the inside and how he needs leaders to do that. He then breaks down to both Pearl and Rick the whole A and B system that the CRM has. So he lets them know that A's are people with strengths who are willing to die for what they believe in, and people follow A's. Basically, A's are your strong, independent leaders that can sort of think for themselves and are willing to die for, exactly what they believe in. He says that the B's are just regular, everyday people who are just trying to get by and survive. He says that B's are automatically let into the CR, and the A's are sent away and killed. Now, I don't think he's told Rick about to the extent of what happens when the A's are sent away, but I think he can sort of piece the pieces together with that, knowing what almost happened to him with Jadis back in Season 8 of The Walking Dead. Okafor also makes a very valid effort in trying to explain to Rick and Pearl that, he sort of sees the best in them. I think you can tell that Okafor has a lot of respect for the two of them because he knows that they're A's, he knows they're leaders, and he wants leaders like that with him on his side in the CRM because he believes that that's the only way that he's going to be able to inflict any kind of change to the CRM to make it better, to prevent things like these A's and B's from being killed or allowed in, prevent things like the Omaha attack that eventually happens later on in this episode. So Okafor is really just trying to, it seems, gather up the leaders that he can to lead a fight against General Beale at some point. He also makes it a point to tell Rick and Pearl that as they rise up through the ranks, they will eventually uncover more secrets to the CRM, which they're going to need to, better be able to understand what's actually happening and how they can make any changes to it. He also brings up what I believe he said is the echelon briefing, which he said is something that 90% of the soldiers don't know about and 100% of the Civic Republic knows nothing about. So seeing at some point maybe Rick or Pearl is going to get access to those files and they're going to start to understand something pretty big, pretty pivotal, I think, to the Walking Dead universe, and I think that's going to play a huge role into later on seasons. Because I do think that we are going to get multiple seasons. I don't think it's going to end with just the one here. Okay, in one of the next scenes here, Rick actually sits down and General Beale joins him and has a little small conversation with him. He basically just kind of asks Rick if he knows if Okafor is up to anything, planning anything. Rick, of course, lies to him, and I think General Beale may sense this. And General Beale also tells Rick about how a big part of how they were able to rise in power so early on in the apocalypse, when things started to hit the fan, was because of Okafor. He said that Okafor had orders to bomb California and what was the other one? Atlanta. He bombed California, Atlanta, and then he had orders to go bomb Philadelphia. And he chose, instead of bombing Philadelphia, to bomb the Marines that were stationed nearby, that were supposed to go in and take out who or whatever the napalm didn't finish off in Philadelphia after he dropped those bombs. And so because of that, he did mention to Rick about how Okafor switched sides and it changed things. I think he's definitely has a fear that Okafor taking up for Rick and Pearl so much, he must see something in them. I think General Beale's sort of maybe a little scared of leaders like that being in the community. They're definitely set up. They're killing the A's because they don't want anyone who is a strong leader to come in and inflict any kind of change to how things are ran. So I really think that General Beale gets an idea of what's going on. I think he's scared of some sort of uprising possibly, and we'll see where that leads. Also, something that I learned from that scene kind of changed my perspective on General Beale there. I thought General Beale was going to be the one who saw potential in Rick as a leader and kept him alive because of that. But it seems that General Beale outright tells Rick him and Pearl would have never been allowed in had Okafor not stuck up for them. I believe Okafor, when he saw his opportunity, he saw that these leaders were here and they weren't bit, they weren't hurt. I think, Rick specifically, he said that this is his opportunity to, get someone on his side to help him make a change from the CRM. Because most of what we see from the CRM, the A's that they take in, at least from Jadis, they were already bit, of course. So I think, this was his one opportunity that he found an A, and he can have them later on help him change the CRM. Same thing with Pearl. He's the one who was out and found Pearl. I believe she was in the middle of the ocean trying to get back home. So I think it really was just a matter of circumstance that led them together. But I see a lot of Rick in Okafor, and we'll talk about that a little later. So then Rick tries to escape again. This would be his 5th attempt to escape. This time he's working with the CRM, so he thinks he's going to have a pretty good out here. He's found a walker, cut its hand off to make it look like him, and left his dog tags with it. His ultimate plan was to blow up this gas tank, make it look like there was a big explosion, and he died that way. He doesn't get very far getting into the sewer before a bunch of walkers surround him and he has to kill them. And then there's a little girl who screams and is terrified. So Rick, of course, gets up to go help her, try to save her. He ends up throwing the grenade that he was going to blow this gas tanker up with down into the sewer. I think maybe Michonne will get hints of this. Maybe Michonne later on in episode 2 might actually stumble across his dog tags or something like that, and kind of lead her a little bit closer to looking for him at the CRM. And she may possibly think that he's dead when she finds that walker. So, we'll see how that goes. But anyway, once he tries to go after the little girl to help her out, he runs into Thorn, who kicks his helmet over to him and basically explains that he needs to put it on so that they can go back to the CRM. Rick then says to her that she said all he had to do was ask for help, and so now he's asking her to help him, just let him get away, let him go home. And she says that she is helping him by not letting him leave because Okafor knows about him. So this sort of confuses Rick and frustrates Rick, so they decide to both go back to the CRM, where Rick will then confront Okafor to ask him about what all he knows about him. A little later on in the episode, Rick does attempt to escape again. This would be his 5th time. He's actually with the CRM now, so he's able to go outside of the military base, sort of, and that gives him a little bit more freedom to try and escape. Thanks to his friend Esteban, who I think was a really cool character that they introduced in this episode. I hope nothing happens to him bad, but I got a feeling that with him trying to help Rick escape, that could in some way end up leading to Esteban's death. Hopefully not, but this is The Walking Dead. Things like that do happen. But we did find out in that episode that his friend Esteban is now deputy manager of Water and Power of Ward 3. And that ultimately is what helps Rick be able to try to escape, because he's able to let him know where one of the sewer lines leads to, and that's what Rick's going to try to use to get out. We then get into one of my favorite parts of this episode, which is when Rick confronts Okafor. He goes up to him and asks him how he knows about him, what he knows about him, and Okafor just replies saying, "I think about the dead all the time," which mirrors what Rick wrote in that green bottle back at the very end of The Walking Dead in Season 11 during his 3rd attempt to escape. So I guess he thought that message in a bottle might have gotten out to somewhere. I know there were a lot of theories that that maybe would be found by Morgan, who would later come in looking for Rick. Unfortunately, it looks like it was found by Okafor, who then taunts Rick in such a way, talking about Michonne and how it's not a very common name, and it could be easy to find her if they just start looking at the place that they picked Rick up at, which of course pisses him off and frustrates him to the point where he tries to fight Okafor, in which Okafor basically just explains to Rick that Okafor is the one that will have to go out and kill Rick and kill Michonne and kill anybody else that Rick comes in contact with if he leaves, because of keeping the CRM a secret. And so I think this is really the pivotal moment where Rick starts to come to understand that they know about my family. it wouldn't be hard for them to find Alexandria if they don't already know. I have a feeling General Beale and them already know. I have a feeling maybe Jadis has told them a lot, or maybe she's respectfully, out of respect for Rick and his family, she's tried to not mention a whole lot. Hopefully we find that out later on this season. But I think this is definitely the moment where Rick realizes that he is stuck, that if he goes back home, he puts everyone that he cares about there in danger. He knows that there's no way that they could prepare at all for any kind of fight with the CRM, with the kind of technology and military equipment and the people, the sheer number of people that they have at the CRM. They could easily wipe out Alexandria. And I think he knows that, and that's a big part of why he now has a fear to go back home. Then as Rick and Okafor have their fight, Okafor gets the upper hand on Rick and actually tells him about how he bombed Atlanta and he bombed California, and he was en route to bomb Philadelphia when he had a change of heart because of him and his wife. They both were tired of seeing people liquidated, basically turned to liquid by the napalm. So he was tired of all these people dying when he felt that they should be doing their part to help those people of Philadelphia. So ultimately, he decided to turn his plane around and bomb the Lincoln Financial Field, which is where the Marines were set up to take out whoever the napalm didn't kill in Philadelphia. Him making this choice ultimately left to him being the one to kill his wife as well, as she was stationed in the Marines. And I just gotta say, that's a whole episode of something right there. I mean, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see his thought process and getting the orders that he has to bomb California, and then getting the orders that he has to bomb, what was the other one? Atlanta. And moving forward, how him and his wife got into communication and decided that instead of doing this, he was going to bomb the Marines. Because there's no way that, it was just their idea for him to just come through and bomb everything. I think his wife probably had a plan to get out. Him and her had a plan for her to get out before he came through and dropped the bombs. But unfortunately, she wasn't able to get out in time. And, you couldn't just fly that jet over there more than once. If you fly over those Marines more than once, odds are they're going to try to shoot you down because they don't know what you're doing over there. So he probably only had one shot to fly over there and drop those bombs, and unfortunately she wasn't able to make it out in time. And like I said, if Tales of the Walking Dead was running, that'd be a great episode for a show like that. I know they did some webisode type things with Fear the Walking Dead, most recently The Dead in the Water, which was a little sort of like a 45-minute special that showed you how the nuclear submarine that's in Fear the Walking Dead ended up beached. Which, it would be really cool to have something like that explaining, the whole story with Okafor and how he had to make that choice, and, just things that made that character into who he is, because I see a lot of Rick in Okafor, and that's something that the actors also basically talked about a lot, that he thinks if Rick really took a hard look at Okafor, he'd realize he was sort of looking in a broken mirror. And I get that, because Okafor does want what's best for everyone. He wants to save as many people as he can, and that was why he bombed the Marines, so that he could save all those probably 200,000 people of Philadelphia there that would later become the CRM. I just think that would be a really cool story to see some way, somehow. I don't know if AMC has anything planned for that, but you definitely should look into doing something like that. It'd be a great excuse to give us a little bit more of Okafor's character and to learn a little bit more about him. And I think the fans would love that, because a lot of reception about Okafor that I've seen, a lot of people really enjoyed his character, and they just want to see more of him. It's really unfortunately he died. He went out like that, but it was amazing, and I think his death is going to be something that's very pivotal in the plot moving forward for Rick, and I think it's ultimately going to help Rick make the decision that instead of going home with Michonne, he wants to stay at the CRM and try to change things for the better. So then Okafor tells Rick that him and Pearl are going to be leading an operation to start a new CRM base, and they're going to be doing that within the next year. Then we cut to a shot where Rick and Thorne hear about Omaha being wiped out. You can hear on the TV the Civic Republic isn't really sure how this happened or what happened, but we know, anybody who's watched World Beyond, you know that the CRM is actually who's responsible for taking out Omaha. It seems that they think that they were going to be a waste of their resources, trying to keep a community that big alive and thriving. We also learned in World Beyond that they had plans to bomb Portland as well, to get them out of the way. It seems like they're still standing right now. I'm not sure if maybe they will actually play a key role in Rick finding an army to help fight against the CRM. If you remember at the end of World Beyond, if you watched that show, the kids did make it to Portland and probably warned them about what the CRM is doing as far as the gases and whatnot. So we'll have to kind of see how that's affected their relationship with the CRM. Hopefully we hear a little bit more about that as the show goes on. Also, when Pearl hears about this, she's very quick to jump on Rick and tell him that they are at the safest place possible, that she believes that this happened to Omaha because they were open about where they were, and I guess she believes maybe other people did this when they found out about the community that they had there, and I don't really believe her or Rick are really going to go through with thinking that any random people would have been able to do something like take out a city that large. I think eventually they will find out that Omaha was all due to the CRM. We then get the scene where Rick decides to burn the last letters that he's written to Michonne, as well as the sketches that she has. He's pretty much lost hope of getting back home. I think realizing that he would put everyone in danger by going back home, he's just decided that it's best for him to stay here with everyone probably assuming that he's dead, and for him to look forward to the future and what he can do to help change the world moving forward at the CRM. Then we jump into the very end of this episode here, where unfortunately Okafor dies. He gets struck by some device while they're in the helicopter, and it blows him up into a bunch of little pieces all over the helicopter. It's a really shocking, crazy scene. My jaw dropped to the floor when this first happened. I was not expecting it to go out like this. It was pretty crazy, pretty intense. Then ultimately the plane ends up crashing down, so Rick and the rest of the soldiers try to go on foot before they're stopped and blown back by another explosion. Then we see a lady with a sword who obviously must be Michonne. She starts killing these CRM soldiers up until she gets to Rick, and she removes his helmet and looks into his eyes, realizes who it is, and she's just stunned and shocked, and they're both left speechless. And that's where this episode concludes, and it's an absolutely crazy, unexpected reunion, but it's a very Walking Dead reunion. You know, I think it's a very realistic take on it, and I think they executed it really well. And the last thing I want to touch on, the way the show's going now here, I can see Rick deciding to try and save the world, essentially, basically by becoming a leader at the CRM. Rick tries to say to Okafor earlier on that he doesn't care why he sees the soldiers come back bloody and why the bombs go out and don't come back, and all he wants to do is just go home. But I think Rick and Okafor both know that that's just not true. Okafor expresses to Rick earlier on when they got in their little fight that everyone back at the CRM are Rick's people, and he tells them basically that everyone alive is Rick's people. And the fact is that's who Rick is. Rick will try to save anyone that he can in any way that he can, and I think that's definitely going to play a big part in the rest of this show. I think with Okafor now gone, Rick is ultimately going to want to carry on and honor his legacy and honor what he wanted to do with the CRM. I think maybe him and Michonne will have an opportunity to go away, but ultimately they're going to decide that the thing that is right for them to do, because they have the power, they automatically have the responsibility to do what they can to change the lives of all those hundreds of thousands of people back at the CRM. I just think it would go against Rick's character to just completely turn his back away from everyone at this place just to go back home, knowing how dangerous it could be to go back home with people coming and probably finding him and killing him and Michonne. It seems in the show they don't really say if General Beale knows about Rick's family or where he's from, but there's no way just Okafor knew about that. I think General Beale knows. I think maybe Jadis told him, and if he does try to leave, I think there will be severe consequences for it. But like I said, I don't think it's going to happen. I think ultimately he's going to decide to stay at the CRM. Him and Michonne both try to make the change that's necessary to make it a better place, and I think that's definitely what's going to lead us into a Season 2, because I'm pretty sure we are going to get a Season 2. And that's all I've got for today's video, guys. I want to appreciate you for clicking on this video once again. If you enjoyed this content and want more like it, please make sure to like and subscribe. Helps grow the channel, helps it get seen by more people. Share this with your friends and family. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you guys in the next video.